Hey, everybody, welcome to the STR Sovereignty Podcast, where we help you build your STR business in a way that you have something that you love, something that kind of helps you create the life that you want, create the business that you want. I'm Steve Haase from Yada. I'm here with my co-founder and Yada CEO, Petar Ojdrovic, and we're going to dive into what it takes to automate your STR business. Petar, you ready?
I am so ready. This is such a cool topic and, one that we're obviously very passionate about and, one where we see a lot of advancements being made and the automating of an STR and the automating of all of the actions that you take when you're running an STR is one of the best ways to free up some time and make your life just a little bit easier. And, it's something that us at Yada, like we at Yada are really passionate about solving for and making as smooth as possible.
Why do we care about automation? What's the deal?
Well, I mean, running an STR is a very process-intensive business. You have a lot of operational processes like turnover and cleaning and checking people in and making sure that invoices are paid and that you've got diligence on, identity verification and things like that. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got this whole motion that you want to get you want to get into place, which is marketing to past guests and interacting with folks that have stayed with you and building a relationship with them. And the only way to do this, if you have thousands of people that go through your doors every year, is to automate a lot of that work. It's impossible to work with 50,000 email addresses and 50,000 phone numbers and 50,000 different individuals without a certain degree of automation, especially if you want to keep your team under 500 people doing everything manually. So what automation really lets you do and why it's so important is because it lets you scale things that are hard to scale by hand. So, if you want to market to somebody, nobody really does manual email outreach marketing anymore. You have systems that automatically send out millions of emails. If you're going to let somebody know that check-in time changed from 2 p.m. to 1 p.m., it's very unlikely that you'd want to send 1,000 of those messages out a month. It's much more probable that you want to have a system that sends those messages out on your behalf. So automation saves time and it makes scale possible.
That's right. It helps you scale your business.
Yeah.
If you have one listing, two listings, chances are you don't have a lot of automation. Chances are you don't have a lot of need for automation. That being said, it still sucks to have to respond to a guest message at 11 p.m. or, in the middle of the night if you're getting a phone call because they don't know where how to work the stove and they're trying to make some, a midnight snack and you're on the hook for that. So let's start there. Let's start with the guest messages that come in and you want to automate those away. Why would you want to do that and how can we get that done?
So a lot of guest messaging is really important and you want a human to handle it. So this is like, especially, if there's an issue or if there's an opportunity for an upsell or things like that, you really do want a human in the loop to handle a lot of those types of messages. But a lot of the messaging that's going to happen if you're a short-term rental host or a property manager is really basic, repetitive question answering. Like, what's the Wi-Fi password? How do I get the jets working in the hot tub? Where's the firewood? Things like that. These are not really business critical things. And often when they're asked most of the time when somebody asks this question is because they want an answer right away. So you'd want to answer responses to those questions, not only to free up time for yourself, which is of course super nice if you can automate, stuff that takes up your time, but also providing a really good guest experience by telling them exactly where to find the extra firewood in 2 seconds versus, waiting for somebody on your team to get back online in half an hour, 45 minutes and get back to the guest. With Airbnb and short-term rentals, if you look at the statistics, the average response time is often over like 55 or 60 minutes for even some of the most basic questions. And I know from personal experience, like if I send a message, like let's say I just checked in and I don't really know how to get the hot tub jets working. It's not really intuitive, like where the control panel is, it might be inside the house instead of outside. I've already wet and in the hot tub. Like I don't want to wait an hour to get a response back. So hearing something in like 30 seconds or 15 seconds that says, hey, just go inside. It's on the left side of the door. Flick the switch or like turn the dial to set them on a timer, that is incredibly valuable to me as a guest.
And I think that's the part that hosts often overlook in terms of the guest value of AI messaging in this case, because they often think, I just want to get off my phone. I want to free up my guest experience people, whatever it is. Like, I want to be free from those repetitive messages. Yes, you want that for yourself, but you also want your guests to get the exact information they need as soon as they need it, right? If a guest is self-serving, or if a guest is, getting a response that the AI already knows, that is the ultimate experience. They don't need you to type it with your thumbs. They just need the info. So the first place to look in terms of automation is, how can you get that information into people's hands without you needing to put it in via, even a snippet. Even a copy paste snippet is still a cycle in your mind that takes you out of dinner with your family, or takes you out of working on something that's going to help you scale the business. So get those things into the hands of the machine as quickly as possible, because the machine is great at those types of things. Now, let's talk about the places where the machine falls down, because I think a lot of people believe if they just automate their stuff, then it will, the machines will take over, and the AI will answer all guest messages. They'll never have to respond to a single thing ever again. When do we see the AI not working so well, and where you really do need human intervention, at least at this point?
Yeah. So there's this idea that AI can solve everything and that I can answer every guest message. That's just not true. When it comes to issues that guests are having, like even if it's something as trivial as, not being able to connect to the Wi-Fi, or, something more serious, like there's a leaky pipe or something like that, you really don't want the machine handling any sort of situations where, an errant response or a bad message could make a bad situation worse. So when there's an issue, or when there's something negative going on, the primary goal should not be to automate a response as quickly as possible, because responses may or may not solve the problem. The main priority should just be to solve the problem. So if there's an issue, what we're seeing is that, that is a well spent chunk of time for you or for an agent to either make a phone call or get involved in that chat directly, because if somebody's having an issue or a small issue and the machine comes back and it exacerbates the issue further, the sentiment of that guest goes down from a 10 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10, and your ability to get a good review and to get that person to come back is severely compromised. I'd also say that you don't want the machine responding in revenue opportunities. So if there's an opportunity to make money, have a human do it. It's worth it. Like that 2-minute or 5-minute conversation could add an extra $150 or $200 or $500 to a reservation for an extra night or something like that. That is per hour one of the most valuable uses of time that your team can have.
So I guess what we're saying here is, not all messages are created equal.
No.
If someone is in trouble, if someone is on the verge of having a bad experience, sending in the humans is the way to go. And so when you're looking at an AI automation platform, test out, how does it respond in negative situations, in urgent situations. If it tries to solve the problem and doesn't escalate it in some way, doesn't kind of pass it on, send a notification, then it's likely doing you a disservice. And same thing with the sales conversation. I mean, that is a fascinating insight. Like, the bot probably could handle the revenue thing, but if you think about value per minute, that is going to be your highest leverage as a human. And again, it doesn't have to be you. Maybe you send it off to your agent. Maybe that's what you have your VA team handling, or your ops team handling. Those moments when a human connection makes all the difference. You don't need a human to tell you the Wi-Fi password, but you do want to talk to a human when it's like, hey, here's, can you give me some flexibility? What's the best deal you can offer? Like, a little bit of empathy could mean the difference between an extra $500 and not.
Right. And like, if you look at across, so many industries are now deploying AI for internal processes, for knowledge work and things like that. It's here to stay. But if you look at leaders across software industries and hospitality industries and pretty much like any business, the consensus is that the last job that's going to get replaced by AI is the jobs that are related to sales and that are related to growth, because often it does take a human message and a human point of contact and some sort of conversation to enable a deal to happen. And what I find really funny is there's a bunch of companies that do like AI voice for sales, like AI SDRs. And when you call these companies to line up a demo, like it's a real human that picks up. So they're not even using their own product to talk to customers for sales conversations.
Burn.
It's really telling that those critical touch points where you have an ability to make money and have an ability to increase the value of a transaction, you really want a human in the loop, because if someone's getting paid, like if you're paying a representative or a sales rep like $50 an hour, $60 an hour, or $20 an hour, and that conversation takes up 5 or 10 minutes of that time, you paid $5 or $7 for that conversation for $500 of ROI from an extra night that you sold. And that is incredibly valuable. But if you're paying somebody that same amount of money to answer what the Wi-Fi password is, that is a really bad return on investment. So, the people should be there to solve problems because they're really good at solving problems, and people should be there to help sell and to help grow because they're really good at helping sell and grow. But people should not be there to do FAQ stuff because it's horrible. Like, you don't want to spend your day answering repetitive questions as a representative, as like a customer support agent or something like that, especially if you're on the sales side or growth side or the exec side. You don't want to spend your day answering repetitive stuff. You want to spend your day solving problems, increasing guest experience, and growing the business. And the AI doesn't want to do that stuff. It's really not good at solving problems or growing the business or anything like that.
It might want to do those things. It wants to jump in on everything, but
but it doesn't have like the AI doesn't care about your business really. Like your people care about your business. The AI just cares about being right. And the best place for something to be right is to answer repetitive questions about where you can find something, how to do something, and how to turn a hot tub on and how to get onto the Wi-Fi. It's perfect for that use case.
Okay. So I think this brings us to a good transition in discussing what is above the line versus what is below the line. Because just as not every conversation is created equal, not every process is created equal. If you think about automating your STR business, the idea of automating everything is sort of the dream, but really you want to automate the things that are easiest to replicate, that are easiest to kind of hand off from a data perspective, and also that will have the biggest impact on guest experience and revenue. So let's talk a little bit about the things that are above the line versus below the line. How do we kind of see that distinction, and what does that even mean?
So the line is like money, I guess you could say. So anything that's below the line, these are activities that you can do to save money. So these are anything from supply chain optimization, like finding a better vendor for sheets that's going to be 20% cheaper. This can be something like finding a cheaper VA service or a more efficient VA service that can handle more tickets per hour for the same amount of money that you're paying. So anything below the line, you're essentially trying to optimize on cost. You're really trying to optimize how much you pay for things and maximize the results that you get for every dollar of input on any sort of like operational optimization. That's basically below the line. If you're trying to make your operations cheaper, more efficient, below the line. Above the line is anything that has to do with growing revenue. So if you're growing revenue, you're increasing the size of the pie. You're not making the pie more efficient. You're not reducing the amount of filling in the pie. You're increasing the circumference and the surface area that you cover. So anything above the line, this could be stuff like marketing and sales training and sales enablement for reps and agents, having a better website and a better converting public presence, like anything that directly impacts your ability to drive more revenue and drive more bookings and, take a night that would have otherwise been empty and fill that night. That is all above the line. So everything above the line is increasing the value of a reservation, and most importantly, making sure that every every empty night on your calendar is impacted as much as possible to not be an empty night on your calendar.
So my favorite Peter quote on the value of above the line is growth solves all problems.
Yeah. It really does.
Why?
It really does.
Not true.
Creates more problems.
It creates good problems. Growth solves all problems, because if you can continually grow your business, you have a good business. Businesses that can't grow are not good businesses. They kind of either stay in the same place or they kind of wither and atrophy and die. So being able to show growth means that A, you have a product that people want to interact with and purchase and spend money on. B, it means that you have a good long-term vision for how you want to grow your business and where you want to be in a year or 2 years or 5 years from now. And C, like to be very frank, like the more money you're making, the more resources you have to solve problems, to grow the business. It's like a very, very self-driving cycle. So the more you're growing the business, the more resources you have to solve problems and make the business better, which in turn enables you to grow the business more, which in turn gives you more resources to solve problems and make the business better and more efficient. So the idea is like grow first, focus on efficiency later. But if you focus on efficiency completely and like below the line stuff without really like having a focus on growth, you can end up with a million systems that kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like you might build something super efficient, but that's very fragile, versus if you're growing, like the inherent fragility of adding a bunch of systems to do a bunch of different below the line, like operationally efficient things. Like if you're not growing, like that system becomes more fragile and more prone to failure and like more frustrating to work with. If you are growing, like any of those problems associated with trying to be more efficient go away. The fact of the matter is that like efficiency is always going to be a problem. Like there is not a single business in this world that is completely efficient. Like there are always going to be operational inefficiencies. There's always going to be stuff to deal with. Like you're never going to be able to get to a fully hands-off, this is just going to print money for me system. That business does not exist. But if you're growing, those problems become fun problems to deal with versus existential problems to deal with.
Right, because then you have resources.
Yeah.
You can, bring on consultants. You can buy better software. You can have a integration partner tie your software things together. Like you use the revenue from above the line to fund the operations below the line. And I think because a lot of STR operators don't really know about the levers they have for the above the line growth, other than, optimize my listing, spend 20 grand on a pickleball court, like the kind of ridiculous things that you see on Instagram. They focus on the efficiencies. They're like, look, the only way for me to fix my business is to, manage turnovers and to make sure my team doesn't miss tasks. Yes, you do need to handle that stuff. But if you're growing, then that stuff becomes easier because you can pay better wages, have better people, build a stronger team. Like everything follows growth. And I think people know that in the outside the space business world, but in this space, we feel kind of hamstrung by those vectors for growth. So that's one of the reasons we're pumped to be here. And that's one of the reasons we're building Yada, is to give people those levers that they can pull to grow.
Yeah. I think that's actually really apt in the space, because I think we talk to so many operators that are so traumatized in a way by the just like the insane amount of tech that they have to put in on the operations side. Like short-term rentals is one of the coolest and biggest industries in the world, but the tech is just really fragmented. And as you're building any sort of hospitality or real estate business, which, this really is, you do need to focus on logistics and turnover and a lot of like real world, like physical world challenges that are unavoidable. And I think what a lot of people assume is that growth is going to be in a similar vein, where it's going to be very logistically challenging with a lot of disparate and a lot of unconnected systems, when in reality, like growth is one of those things that in STRs and in hospitality more broadly, where you can really bring it all under one process and under one roof in a way that you're never going to be able to for the below the line operational stuff.
So you say you can bring it under one roof, but like, could people do that prior to Yada? Not to toot our own horn or anything, like that's literally why we're here. But like, was it possible before what we started building?
To be honest, not really. Part of the reason why we're building what we're building is, for one of our colleagues, and for a lot of people on our team, like we did spend some time in the STR space. And if you're trying to build any sort of marketing funnel, you might have Google Analytics doing analytics on your website. You might have some contact data in Guesty. You might have Typeform on your website for collecting contact info and email info. There's a lot of like disparate, unconnected sources of data that you then have to aggregate into something like Google Sheets to put together a list. And then, maybe at some point down the road, plug that list into MailChimp and send out an email. And you'd have to do a lot of manual segmentation and work to, take all that those data sources that you have and run a campaign against them. And it's kind of what you got over here. There's a really, prior to Yada, like a really horrible Frankenstack that's costing, it's a lot more expensive than just money. If you wanted to really do growth and you wanted to focus on growth and be serious about it, you typically have to hire a marketing agency, buy an email platform, buy an SMS platform, buy guest data capture, buy Segment or Google Analytics or something for analytics data, like buy some digital guidebooks to put a surface area in front of the guest, build your own loyalty product and hire an offshore team for $50,000 to build your own loyalty app, spend like $150 a month on Zapier. And then if you really wanted to connect everything, you'd need to buy Go High Level or HubSpot or something like that to sync all these sources up. So you're spending, like, even for the most basic of things, you're spending like, unless you want to do it yourself, like manually, which could be like, 50 or 100 hours a month, like do the math on how much that costs, to have it just done for you is, lower end of the scale, like $3,500 a month, to just get like an intelligent email campaign out there that connects from your guest and your reservation data to your website and then back to the revenue that it drives. So it really is horrible. Like that is a bad picture.
Yeah, honestly, one of the thing that kicked off our path down marketing, because we started with guest experience. The thesis was that allowing that automated AI messaging would change people's business, so extraordinarily. And what we saw was it makes a difference and everyone should have it, but it's not the thing that changes everything. What changes everything is the growth factor. And so we were looking through what it takes to actually send a proper SMS to somebody. And it was find the contact, see what they left you as a review, see when they stayed, see where they stayed, go click through, find their number, put their number into a texting platform or type it into your phone, and then create a message, maybe copy paste the message and hit send. 4 or 5, maybe even 10 clicks to send a single message. And there was no great tool that could pull that data, organize that data, manage it, and then much less actually automate it and send those kinds of messages for you. So in the spirit of help me automate my STR business, we said, let's freaking build that. And so, this is an educational platform. This is an educational podcast, but also we are so pumped that is now possible with what we offer.
Yeah. And I mean, because this is educational, if you want to piece it together using these 12 different tools, we're more than glad to help and kind of provide some guidance on that front. But
that'd be a tough lesson.
Yeah, it'd be a tough lesson, and I think it would take quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Okay. So that's above the line automation. Now, we didn't really talk about the automation part. If you use the Frankenstack, the automation is going to be having a marketing agency that's doing it for you, having a VA that's doing it for you, pulling out the steps. It's going to be all about the processes and having other people that you've hired follow those processes. In the end, that is the solution for STR automation, is figuring out what are the repeatable processes, who is going to do it, How do you know they're doing it well? And then, refine the processes based on that feedback loop.
Yeah.
If you need to use people, fair. In the end, though, at the rate that AI, machine intelligence, software, all of that is improving, it's not going to be long before the machines will be doing it much better and much more cheaply than the humans. And so, it would be an interesting experiment if you did maybe half of your listings, or if you're managing several businesses, one business using the VA approach, one business using the software approach, and see what are the pros and cons, because there will be pros and cons to them. But yeah, it'd be interesting.
Agreed. It's really cool stuff now that's available with automation. And
what else do people need to know about automating their STR businesses? We talked a little bit about above the line. In terms of actually automating above the line, let's talk about what a good marketing setup looks like. What are people doing? What are they sending? How is that working for them? How do they know it's working?
So a good marketing setup is actually really straightforward. Basically, you want to be able to pull your guest data out of whatever non-marketing systems it exists in, create content relevant to those lists that you pulled out of it, and send that content out, email, text, WhatsApp, whatever, and then be able to close the loop on that contact later by tracking, were these messages ones that resulted in conversions or extra bookings or extra nights or whatever. So I think in order for an automated system to work really well, the data ingestion needs to be seamless. It needs to be really easy to work with. Turning that ingested data into lists needs to be incredibly straightforward and incredibly simple. And once you have those lists and once you have that content, being able to send messages and track progress needs to be incredibly simple. So in no part of the sequence should there be like hot potatoing of data or information or content or collateral or anything like that. Like it just needs to flow like in a very, very simple sequence, because that's how you keep chain of custody. That's how you keep data clean. That's how you know who you messaged and when. That's how you know what offer is relevant to whom. Being able to do a lot of the really complicated steps of cleaning up, segmenting, organizing, and slicing data, connecting it to content, sending that content out, should be very straightforward. Like if at any point in that process, if you're scratching your head or if you're frustrated, the automation is either not there or the automation isn't working well enough for it to be effective for you. So marketing needs to be so easy that it takes like less than a couple of minutes to send out a message. If it's taking more than a couple of minutes to go from the goal of wanting to market to somebody to actually marketing to them, you're doing it wrong. Like even that small amount of friction is going to stop you from doing it in the first place. So the automation should be there to remove any sort of roadblock or bottleneck that stops you from actually getting a message out to your customers.
I love that as a rule of thumb, because the idea of automate my STR business, like that's really vague. It's never going to be automated. And so the bar for what equals automation, I think, could be what you just said. Is there friction in the process? Do you feel stymied in your desire to actually complete this thing based on your system? And if the answer is no, then chances are you have something that's automated. Until the AIs take over everything, which hopefully they never do, there will still need human judgment in the process. There's still going to need human taste. Your personality, your connection with people is what you want to have influencing those marketing campaigns. So even if it's just an edit on a message, if it's an approval on a message, you are still in that process, even in a process that's pretty well automated.
And I would also add that sort of threshold for what automation looks like is a lot easier to achieve, or it's a lot clearer what that looks like if you're marketing to somebody versus if you're tackling sort of the operational below the line questions. Even the biggest companies on the planet have a difficult time automating everything to do with logistics and supply chain and the process of actually managing a physical asset. So if you go into a hotel, and it seems like rooms get cleaned on time and everything like that. That's because there's a team of 10 people inside with humans checking in to see whether someone's checked out. Like, there's this massive machinery that isn't entirely automated. Like, it just looks very magical from the perspective of the guest, because they don't see the work and the human work that goes into it on the back end. But there's a great deal of human in the loop and human intervention to make sure that every room, every day, those 300 plus rooms get turned over, and that they're clean, and that they're ready for new guests, and that the guests are in there. Like, you have a lot of human judgment that goes into that. Like, if you're still sleeping and the cleaner knocks on your door, they know, okay, I'm going to come back in 2 hours, and they have a physical checklist that they kind of go through to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So that's something that's never going to be fully digitized and automated, because of the amount of human work and human capital that's needed to make sure that goes off well. On the marketing side and on the growth side, it's a lot. I wouldn't say it's easier to automate, but the picture is a lot clearer for what that looks like when it is automated to the point where growth and marketing are just inherent day-to-day parts of the business, without needing to spin up a massive new piece of infrastructure, tech, or software to make it happen.
Love it. Okay, so you heard it here, folks. We are on your side when it comes to automating your STR business, at least as much as possible. We would love to talk to you about it. If you have any questions, if you want a marketing audit, a guest experience automation audit, we are here. We are here for it. Come on over at yada.ai. Fill out the form there to get a demo. We'll show you what Yada can do and how it can help you automate your STR business.
100%. And if there's anything that you'd want us to talk about in the future, like any topics that you might find interesting, please let us know. For us, this is more than just work. It's something that we're really passionate about. Steve and I come from a very deep MarTech and sales enablement background, and really, spending a very long time building tools that make it easier for people to automate marketing and automate selling and all these types of things. So we're really passionate about it. So if you have anything that you want us to cover, especially around marketing and marketing automation, please let us know. We're more than happy to do that.
If you can't tell, we are uber geeks. We are. It's the only thing we think about. Not true. That's not true.
Depending on the time of the day.
We can get pretty one-tracked about things, to the befuddlement of the people around us at times.
That's true.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, everybody.